Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Risper Genga Ohaga on stage. So, Risper, you have been in finance for a minute. Tell us, did finance choose you or did you choose finance? Just walk us through that for you. Is it something that you're passionate about that you just decided, hey, let me grow in this and let me see what can come out of it?
I think I stay in a job, a role, an organization for two reasons. One, am I learning? Am I growing? And two, am I having fun? So as long as I'm having fun and I'm growing, then I stick around. And what I tend to find is whilst I'll stay in the organization, I will mine all the opportunities in the organization. So I've worked in 3 organizations only, KPMG, Barclays, Absa, and EABL, and in each of those, you'll find that I never stayed in the same role for longer than 3 years maximum. And even within that, I'm always itching for what else can I add? What else can I do? How do I keep engaged, excited, and learning? And I think that's what has kept me going. I think you make more traction where you have credibility. So if I'm already in KPMG, they know me, they know my work. If I put up my hand for something, I'm building. But if you keep on starting every time, sometimes that can be challenging. But I also think it depends very much on the sector. There's spaces where if you don't move, you're not going to grow. But I think you have to ask yourself, am I growing? Because with every role you do, you are putting together a body of work, which you then trade. So what's the value of that body of work? Have you actually added any skill, or did you just hang around for 5 years and repeat the same thing? So I think that's what I'm constantly asking myself. Am I building this body of skill, or am I just occupying the space? Yeah.
Which is really an interesting perspective because from what I'm hearing is that you have actually changed roles. So it's not like it is one thing and it's sort of like a plateau, but within the organization you find spaces to learn and grow into different roles.
I've not only changed roles, I've changed countries, still in the same organization. So yeah, definitely always looking for even a project. I've once, before I became finance director, I stepped off my role, which was quite a senior role in audit, and took a secondment to one of the, let me say, worst performing businesses that needed a turnaround. And I spent 7, 8 months there, just on a project role to say, I want to see how it is to run a finance function, to do a turnaround of a business. And by the time I was done, the FD appointment was there. Yeah, so it's also about taking the risk, putting yourself out there, doing the hard stuff, because nobody ever got ahead by doing the easy stuff. It's always the hard stuff. Yeah.
So you take on the problem, you take on the challenges.
Take on the problem and solve it.
Wow, okay. Why don't you walk us through your career journey, how you started and the different transitions? Just walk us through till today.
Maybe a bit of a background. When I did some jobs when I was in campus. So my first job, you will know these organizations maybe by the way I describe them. So my first job, I used to be sent by Strathmore. I went to a company, an industrial area that they manufactured flour. So I'm sure you know who that is. And they took interns from Strathmore. They paid as well for that time. It was 15,000 shillings. But they didn't have work for us. So here we were, 3 of the best and the brightest, and there's nothing to do. You'd come in, you're told, okay, go photocopy that, go type this into a spreadsheet. And we're really bored. And then one day, one high-powered consultant came in and decided to re-strategize this organization. And things didn't go well. And the first thing that happened was last in, first out. And so the interns were retrenched. So that was my first experience of getting retrenched.
Quite early in your career.
In my career, so I was jobless. I was to be there for 3 months. We were there for 2 months, halfway in. Yeah, the high-powered consultants sent us home, but we really weren't doing anything. The next one I did was in an oil company, so this one you might not guess easily where I was. They had a massive reconciliation issue. And they got interns and they got me to come in and figure out what's happening. The numbers are not adding up. What we see up here and what is down here, they're not adding up. And so they tried various things to unravel this, and they weren't getting any answers. And so I got in, and I was given this massive ledgers. They were physical ledgers, printouts. And I was going through and trying to crack this code, when one day I noticed something weird. There was some number code of credit notes that was not aligned to anything. And so I started to pick them out and add them all up. And as I added them all up, they turned out to be the difference. And what it was a massive fraud within the organization, involving some people in sales, technology, a bunch of guys. And so went to my boss to say, oh, I think I've seen something here. So I shared that with him, and little did I know the kind of Pandora's box I had opened. They offered me a job after, but I didn't think it was safe to go back in there. But they did give me a very good recommendation letter and a bonus. They were really happy about having solved that, but it meant some people had to lose their jobs, so it was a massive fraud. The result of that was that I was terrified about being an accountant, because I thought, what if that happened under my watch? What if people stole money and I didn't know? And so when university was done and it was time to choose a career, I decided I've done accounting, but maybe let's not be an accountant just yet. So the audit firms came, and as they were recruiting, KPMG came along. They were sort of a turnaround firm. They weren't like the best at the time. But the year before, they had come in early and taken the best for like 2 years in a row. And then they came back and they came in early again, and they sold their story, and they came with the guys they took, and two things struck me. Everybody looked happy. And two, when I talked to the guys who had been hired 1-2 years before, they told me, by the way, here there's no hierarchy. There is, you'll get responsibility quicker, you'll be challenged, and it's a really caring environment, and that sold me. So the next day, I think another firm came, I won't name them. I did the aptitude, I came out top. They called me for the interview, I didn't go, I already had an offer. So he came to tell me, one of the guys came to tell me, but we'll give you a $3,000 laptop. And I was like, I've weighed this thing, let me go and try over there. So I know Jem is here. Jem worked with me at KPMG. Yeah. And for me, I think starting out at KPMG was a really good stroke of luck. It had all the things you hear about the organization of the future today. 20 years ago, they had it then. An organization that cared, truly cared about you. It had some quirks at first, but to be honest, on the whole, they really cared about the person and they meant it. Two, you have to hop 5 levels before you get here. I think there were years I got double promotion twice, like skip this level and go to this one because you're so good. And that was a possibility. And they didn't say you have to do 3 years before you can talk to the MD of this company. As soon as they thought, we've built you, go ahead and do it. So there was a lot of opportunity for you to learn and grow. So I enjoyed that immensely. There was a lot of training. There was a lot of feedback. As a manager of people, you got a lot of feedback from your people. And what I like is their philosophy was, we spend so much time hiring people, so we get the right people. So if they're not working, maybe check yourself as the manager. Yeah? And that, for me, has been a principle throughout. So a lot of, I think, what I've learned and been was out of the foundation of KPMG as an employer back then. They did have some weird stuff, like when I had my firstborn in my first year of working, and they had a medical policy that said pregnancy is self-inflicted, therefore there's no maternity cover. So there was that, and then I think I came back from maternity leave after 6 weeks. But I loved this place. Why? Because they valued me. And I always ask myself that, do I create that experience for the people that work for me? That they know.
Sorry, Risper, just a bookmark there. We will come back. I mean, you still love the place after such a policy?
I did, and I wonder why. Maybe I didn't know better. Maybe I did know better. Yeah. But there was something about how things ran over there, and I suspect it was that principle of We hire right, so manage right, or else check yourself as the manager, what you're missing.
So would you say that also your manager had something to do with the reason why you're comfortable to come back and move on?
Yeah, so there was a lot of managers. The good thing about audit is it's never one person. You work for 10 managers. If one don't like you, the other 9 will talk for you. So you've got a lot of opportunities to prove yourself. I also think I caught the eye of one of the most feared partners very early in my career, and somehow I got an advocate in her. I'd done a report. You know, when you're in campus, you know how to write English, or so you think. So you write a report. I did this report. I thought it was great. My manager looked at it and said, yeah, sent it for review. It came back red all the way. And my manager was so frustrated. He told me, go and ask her what she wants. So we're kind of sitting on 14th floor. Partner is sitting on 16th floor. And I've been told to go and ask her what she means. So me, I'm naive. I take the paper. See, I'm going to ask her what she means. So I take the paper. As I'm walking away, people are asking me, are you sure? Will you come back, or do you just want to take your bag with you? But me, I'm naive. So I take the thing, I go to her office, I sit down, and she explains to me. She explains to me exactly what she means, why business English is different from the other English, you know, and how you should write this thing. And I come back down and everybody is, you're still here. Yeah, but from that encounter, I redid it, she liked it. From that encounter, she always looked out for me. It didn't hurt that I was also very good with some of her very finicky clients. So at some point when I went on maternity leave, one of her very finicky, well-paying clients said they would only deal with me. And I was the most junior in the team. So she called me and said, this client will not talk to anybody. Can you come and just open the door and let guys come in? So I think it's be good at what you do, like be totally exceptional, and to really commit to relationships. Do you make an impact, or are you forgotten as soon as you leave the door? And I don't think I was trying to be liked. I was just really trying to do a good job and to connect with the client. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I've lost you completely.
No. That was a bookmark. So now we can proceed with you at KPMG. Yeah, and then how did you go from there?
So I loved it. They're very structured programs. I always thought I wanted to be a partner. So at year 3, I asked them, what will it take for me to be a partner? And they looked at me, they said, hey, okay, you're ambitious. But I think it's put it in their minds that, oh, we have somebody who's interested in doing this. So how do we develop her? How do we grow her? How do we give her opportunities? And so opportunities were consistently being put before me towards that path of partnership.
Because you asked?
Because I asked. I said, what will it take?
Because she did what? Because she asked. So just allow me to underline this. Because I have seen this, where I was recently doing something for an organization, and so what happened is that the Gen Zs were very bold. They said, this is what we want. Yeah. But there's a different kind of a generation who did not voice, did not do what Risper did. They did not ask, and the opportunity passed. Yeah. So the Gen Zs got it, and these people thought, you guys are favoring the Gen Zs. But it's only because the Gen Zs did what? They asked. Please go on. I wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, so suddenly I'm at the door of partnership. I've done all the assessments. Everything looks good. And then I start to look at this thing and I'm wondering, what is so good about it? Because at that time, there was a shift in what partners used to do. There was a lot of risk management and a lot of selling. Risk management I thought was really boring. It's a lot of form filling. And selling, I'm really not good at selling. And what I enjoyed was working with the team. So I started asking myself, is this what I really want? And one day, as I was walking, we used to do a massive graduate recruitment at KICC. We'd show the graduates how wonderful it is to work at KPMG, and then you go back to the office. And I'd done that, and on that day, the 2 partners that spoke they'd only worked for KPMG. And before I went for this, I'd gotten a call to interview with Barclays for director role for audit. And I'd said, I'd looked at it, and then I said, no, I'm not interested. Let me stay here. I'd also gone to a different company. I won't say which one. We interviewed, they liked me. I had a fundamental issue with their product, so I declined. So I thought, maybe let me settle down and just do what I'm doing. I'm happy here. I've always wanted to be partner. Let me be still. So walking down from KCC, I watched these guys talk about their careers, and I thought to myself, is this it? Am I going to be those guys? Is this it? And as I was walking back to Lonro House from KCC, I got a call from Elizabeth. She's late now. She was Aidan Mohammed's EA. And she called me and she said, you girl, what do you mean you don't want this job? And I'm thinking, I don't. And she tells me, so Aidan just wants to talk to you. You come and talk to him. If after that you don't want the job, it's okay. Yeah. So off I went, met Aidan in his office. I think, we had a really good conversation. And by the end of it, and I think that's a thing I've also learned, is to look at the person who you're going to work for. Do you admire them? Do they inspire you? Do you want to follow them? And from that conversation alone, I knew I wanted to work for Aidan. He was very sharp, very clearly strategic. He was, by the end of it, I was like, why am I not working for this guy? But then one of the things he also did was he asked me, how much are they paying you over there? So I told him the number. I thought I was paid decently. And he burst out laughing. He thought it was a funny joke. Yeah, so I went back to the office, and next few days they called me up and said, okay, we've expanded the role. We've made it bigger. Please come. And in that year, I'd been telling my boss, the same lady from before, that I'm so bored of this job now that I'll either get a job or a baby. I mean, she was the kind of boss I could have this conversation with. So come from seeing Aidan, a number of conversations after, offer letter comes in, I'm looking at it, I'm about to resign, and find out I'm pregnant as well. So
You
all
got
of them
double.
happened at the same time. Yeah, so then I called them, I say, hey, by the way, this thing has happened, it's maybe not a good time to move, so let me stay over here. And they said, no, come, we'll make it work. They were early adapters of remote working. They said, we'll sort everything out for you so you can work from here. So that's how I moved to Barclays. Quite a big journey of transformation. KPMG was easy to transform. Everybody is fresh from college. They are highly professional. They're, fertile ground for you to plant. Now, Barclays, my entry was, my boss sat in Dubai, so they invite me over. They say, the first orientation, you need to come out to London and to Dubai. Send your passport and all the details for processing. So send it to one of the team. So I send it to this guy. They do everything. On the day of reporting, I come in, he looks at me, he says hi to me, this little pregnant lady. Then he tells me, I've been working in this bank since you were 3 years old. Yeah, so hey, I thought, okay, so this is the team. I remember I've never managed anyone older than me. I've only managed fresh grads, and here I am. And generally that was the demographic of the people I needed to manage. And the brief was, and one of the reasons I took the job was that we don't have talent in Africa. So we want you to create a team in Africa that will be transformational. And I thought, yeah, I can do that. What I didn't know was the raw material I was about to work with. Yeah, so that's Barclays. And 3 years later, I stayed Barclays Kenya. I was taking care of East and West Africa. Managed to, two things about Barclays that struck me. One, it's the first time I was working in a truly global organization. And I was the only director sitting in Africa. The rest were sitting in Dubai and London. And we'd have these conference calls, even back then. And I just found it so hard to engage, because everybody's talking, they're in the room, and by the time they realize you're over here, everything has been said, so I don't say anything. And my boss called me and said, when we have one-to-ones, you have so many good ideas. And then in the meeting, you just keep quiet. Why? From now on, you will say something in every meeting, even if it's just to summarize. Yeah? So I do that to a lot of my people now. You will say something, even if it's a summary. Yeah, so he taught me that you're not just going to be found from your whole way you're working hard. You have to be hard. You've got to find a way to vocalize and be hard. And he also took it upon himself to invite me to contribute. So that was one of the big things I learned in Barclays. And from then on, even when there's a town hall, even when I went to SA, if there's somebody from group or wherever they come, there's a town hall, I put up my hand before I think twice. Because if I start thinking about it, I'm going to second guess myself. Is it a foolish question? Should I really ask this? And then somebody asks this and I'm like, that could have been me. So I put up my hand first, then I developed the question. So that was one. Another key lesson from Barclays. Oh, when I told Aidan my salary, when the offer came, they doubled it, and I thought it was really exciting. Until I found out that I was like after doubling, I was on the lower quartile. And they had this thing where now they were accelerating me so that I can get into the range where I'm supposed to be paid. So again, really important that you understand. I guess there was a price for the training, but then you also need to price yourself right. So that's one. The second thing I learned from Barclays was same boss, a nice Irish guy, told me, every time you're in London, I want you to make an appointment with each of the key decision makers. Have an agenda, tell them what you're doing, because there was a headcount freeze. It was tough times cost-wise. And remember, I want to transform a team. And I don't have headcount, and I don't have budget to do any kind of restructure or anything like that. So he says, when you come in, have a conversation with them, tell them what you're doing. Yeah? And I learned that senior people love to hear from people. They'd love to help you. But my friend Anne Mariah says, please have content and be interesting. Don't bore them. Don't go there and wait for them to feed you. Like, be interesting. Yeah, so I learned that as well. So I always look for who do I want to hear from, and I take the chance. If they say no, it's okay. See, I'll be just where I am. If they say yes, I might actually learn something. So that was the second lesson out of Barclays.
Yeah. I just wanted to, and probably you have already answered this, but just for you had someone who held your hand and said, speak up. You know, they brought you to the room. They gave you the opportunity. They even guided you, you know, in terms of telling you do this. But for someone who doesn't have that kind of a leader, how can they make their voice heard? You know, what spaces can they begin to put up their hand and say, I have something, yeah, for someone who doesn't have such a leader?
I think, did I need him to say that to me? I don't think so. I think nothing was stopping me from contributing. I was second-guessing myself. I was questioning my voice. I was saying, well, they're all in the room. How can I contribute? And I was kind of talking myself out of it. I think for me, I just say, you're probably, half the time, you know what you want to say. You have a valid contribution. Just give it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You don't need anybody's permission. Yeah? You don't need anybody's permission to contribute or to be heard. Yeah.
So speak up. You know, whenever it is you have the opportunity to speak up. Yeah. And by the way, can you create such opportunities where those opportunities are not there?
Absolutely. I'll tell you now, when I go to my board audit committee, I always go with one of my one-downs. And they get to present one paper. Now, it's a risk. If they do it wrong, it's on me. But I show them that I trust you with this. And I also want you to see, when I ask you to do the things I ask you, I want you to see the kind of questions a board asks. I want you to see the kind of challenge, the kind of how the interaction works. One, for your learning and your preparedness, but also when you're next preparing the paper, you know what it looks like. You know, I give the example of when my daughter was little, and I used to come and work from home. I used to work a lot from the house. In her mind, somehow she thought I was playing computer. She literally said that one day, you're playing computer. So when you go to the office, you play computer the whole day. Yeah, and sometimes when we are going to the board or we're going to wherever we're going, our guys think we're playing computer, right? So give them the chance to see what is it that you actually do. And so for me, it's that. How are you paying it forward? How are you preparing the people in your team? Because the best way for you to step up is to run yourself out of a job. If they can do your job as well as you can, then surely, is there any reason for you to stay there? Yeah.
Wow, that is very, very insightful. So that's Barclays. How did you move from Barclays?
So first, Barclays, I did 3 years, massive transformation to where, and I think sometimes it's important to paint a vision for your team. And I remember coming to that team, and the group chief or internal auditor came, and he asked me, "What one thing can I do for you?" And I told him, "Allow me to hire just one guy, just one." And that one guy made all the difference. I got the one guy, and now as we're on fast forward, everybody else is on slow motion, but we have set the pace. And before long, I got one more, and then we did a massive restructure. And by the end of year 2, I had such a high-performing team. The first year I came in November, the audit plan was nowhere near done. Guys had 50 days leave. I told them, just go and leave. There's nothing you can do now to salvage the situation. Go home. Yeah? And then let's come back and reset. And for me, the vision was, I want us to be the team where everybody wants to come and be here. Because we love what we do, we're proud of it, we do it well, and we're having fun. If we do that, there'll be no excuse, yeah, for us. So within 3 years, there was nothing left for me to do. I had a great team. And so, remember I'd come and I was having a baby. And so I went to see, in my London visits, I went to see the group chief auditor. And I asked him again, what will it take for someone like me to head Africa? Because Africa was a training ground for the British talent. So they were brought to head Africa, then they go back to a bigger role. So I said, well, what will it take for someone like me? And I was sitting in his office, and it became an interview, quick fire. If you were faced with this, what would you do? How would you handle this? What do you know about this? By the time I was done, that was an interview. And he asked me, what about mobility? I said, if the location makes sense, I'll do it. And I was told, as I was speaking to him, there was actually a relocation of the Africa head office from Dubai to SA. And he asked me, would you do Joburg? I said, yeah. And I didn't know at the time that there was anything like that. So that transition was happening. The person who was in Dubai didn't want to move to Joburg, so there was a vacancy, and he was my boss. And so a lot of people wanted this job, and they were told, we have a preferred candidate. And that's how I ended up moving to SA to take on the Africa role. And I did 4 years there. I think in a year, I ended up taking on SA as well. And really massive growth from that move, just again because I asked.
Because she did what, ladies and gentlemen? She asked.
Yeah, he'd never have known that I am mobile. He'd never have known any of this stuff. But I told him, what will it take? Maybe not now, whenever. Yeah, so that was SA. SA was a massive, again, for me, I think, SA and a little bit of the stint in Mozambique was my understanding that you've got to care about people. And people are different in different contexts, culturally. Their journey to there is different, and you have to want to fight their battle. And if you don't want to fight their battle, then you might be okay, but you're not going to be outstanding. You're not going to get the best out of them. So I think for me, that was one of my best teams. Mostly young ladies, childbearing age. And if you know South Africa and the history of apartheid, it was about transformation, bringing more black people into the workplace. But these black people don't have support mechanisms in Joburg. So they have their babies, and they take them to their mothers in the village. And you know how hard that was. And so for me, it was understanding that and saying, how do I make sure these women can actually work here with peace of mind? And so we started to flexi work, and the rule was, you don't escalate your problems. If your child is sick, call your friend. Because even them, when their child is sick, they'll call you. So let's sort things out. Because if we don't make this work from home work, it will be taken away. And then we cannot have the flexibility we need to be able to take care of the young families. So that was really important for that team, and they were exceptional. I never had anybody calling me, I'm sick, my child is sick. They sorted it out. And they sorted it out to where delivery was always on top. And they grew in their careers. They really did amazingly well.
So, Risper, you cared about the people. You know, you even created a way of them to think about the problem and come up with a solution. Where did you get the time for, because you still have targets. You're looking at the region, you're looking at other metrics to make sure the business is performing and meeting out. How did you balance that? Taking care of the people while at the same time taking care of your targets?
I think if you take care of your people, they will take care of your targets. And if you don't, you will chase the targets. And you chase the targets, I tell you. Yeah, so for me, you have to find the time. Secondly, I had to change the leadership, and I've had to do that a lot. I had a group of managers. The first thing I got was exit interview feedback. We were getting in as many black people as were leaving us. And I asked why, and they said, we come here, we're hired to do a job. We sit from day one up to the day we leave, and nobody gives us work. And if they give us work, they do it in parallel. So our work never gets checked, we never get feedback. And so I had a conversation with managers and said, okay, this isn't going to continue around here. This is going to have to change. A few of them voted with their feet, and that gave me an opportunity to go out, because the other thing was there was a habit of hiring people of color for the numbers, not for the talent. So again, it was making sure, can I bring people of color who people will just be shocked? And I remember one lady, I called her for the interview. She said, I don't want to work there. I said, come, let's just talk. And I told her the vision I had. I told her the things I wanted to do. I told her I want us to do transformation properly. Come and let's do this together. And eventually she came across. We had an amazing team, amazing fun times, great results. My boss used to ask me, what happens over there? Like, everybody is happy, guys are having fun. Half the time they're not in the office, but I'll never catch you out on deliverables. Never, ever, ever will there be any excuse that we cannot do work. So I think it's just, you have to invest yourself as a leader, because you lead people. You don't lead work. You lead people.
That is so deep. You lead people, not work. And Risper, I've heard you say this thing about fun like several times. Yeah? What is it about fun that is important to your leadership?
So I'm quite an introvert, but I think in my mind, you spend so much time at work. And a lot of the work, it's called work because it's not fun. But you've got to make it to where it motivates and excites you. So how do you bring that out? The playfulness in your team, the ability to just do things in a way that really makes you want to be there. And yeah, of course, it's not always team buildings and trust falls and things like that. It's the little things every day. It's little things. Once in a while, just buy your guys pizza or even fruits. Like, yeah, sit around a table together and eat together. But yeah, I think you've got to enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point?
Okay, so that was Barclays.
Just Barclays. Barclays is not done yet. So
we're
that's
still in
Joburg.
Barclays. So Barclays in Joburg.
Joburg, and then I did Mozambique for a short stint. Then I did Zambia, where I switched now to finance director. Zambia was amazing, absolute best country. If Kenya wasn't home, I would maybe move to Zambia. So again, my first experience as FD, a lot of learnings. One just from what was happening in the economy. And when I came here in COVID, the lessons I learned in Zambia were hugely valuable in terms of how I ran the business. But again, I had two different leaders, one very affirming, very tough. I've said all my best bosses were very tough. But I knew that they were tough because this was growing me. And when I was done, I will always call them back because I can see where they got me and where they left me. And yet, they still cared. They still looked at me and said, Risper, how are your daughters? And I'm giving you a new challenge. This is the size of that challenge. But some days were painful, but it was the pain of growth. And sometimes it's also good to recognize the pain of growth versus I am being tortured. Yeah, I did have an I am being tortured as well side of it during that stint. But yeah, I always say you either learn how to be or you learn how not to be. Either way you learn.
Okay. I think that's very important to have that distinction. Yeah. And tough love is also important in leadership. All right. So, how did you come back?
That is backlist.
Yes. How did you come back to Kenya?
How did I come back? So when I moved to SA, I moved with my family and I was moving for good.
Like the whole family?
Yes.
Even your husband?
Yes.
Just explain to us. I mean, what did that mean for your family? How was that for your husband? I mean, usually it's the other way around. But yeah, how was that for your family?
So it had this story started a long time ago because my husband was in sales for a long time. He'd done pretty well. He was doing well. But he'd had a stint where he was just tired of that role. And he kept telling me, "I to quit." And I kept telling him, "But they pay school fees." I mean, the company used to pay school fees. So but they pay school fees. You can't quit. We can't cover that difference. And so at some stage of his career, he had done a stint outside. And during that stint, we really struggled. The kids were small. I got married straight out of varsity, so I never knew how to pay a bill. I didn't know anything. And all of a sudden, I have the kids, I have the house, I have the job. So I pretty much grew up overnight, learned how to do things for myself. And then he came back and he found all the things I was relying on him to do. I was doing them by myself. But inevitably what that does is that there's a distance created. And when that distance is created, if you don't fix it, you maybe won't make it. And so we recognized that, and he came back and we said, this is going outside the country. If it happens again, we go together. So when this came, I told him, okay, this has come. See, we said we'll go together. Yes. And you said you're tired. Yes. See, we do it then. And, you know, my husband is very logical, so he put down pros and cons. And pros and cons are always about the family, not about Risper and her career. And it's this family, what does it do for them? What works against them? And on the balance, is this the right thing? And so that's how we ended up moving. It meant he quit his job, and he came, and our littlest was 2. So yeah, he has spent, I think she's now 15 and a half. The last 13 years, there isn't a Friday he has not taken her to Engine or to, now here it's Village Market, for a Friday treat. Not a single one. Yeah. And I think if you're a guy, children value that. It makes a difference for them. Yeah, so I always say he spent the time sewing on into the children, a lot of it. I had to explain that to his mother, but it went well. But I think after 8 years, initially when we went to Zambia, it was 2 years we're coming back. I'd been told, you're definitely going back. 2 years became 4, and I knew that, you know, on the balance, it's time. It's time to go back. Yeah, because there's only so much, you know, you can then put your life on hold, and for the good of the family, we needed to come back. Also, our parents were aging, we missed our siblings, and, you know, it was time. Yeah, so that's how I'd been talking to Barclays. They'd said, yeah, we'll find you a role back home. Then at the end, they said, let's just take you back to South Africa. That was tough. I really didn't want to go back. And so I'd resigned to it. I prayed over it a lot. We prayed over it, and we said, look, we'd really like to go home. Peter had lost his dad, and we were away. So we said, we've only got a short time with our parents. It really is time. So I think we'd packed. Things were even stacked up, ready for Joburg. And then I got a call from EABL like a week to. Did a quick conversation, and I told him, by the way, I'm going to Joburg, so if we are moving, we move. Very quick round of interviews, and by the time my things were about to be shipped to Joburg, the offer was signed, and we changed course for Nairobi. And again, for me, it was providence, because we landed here December 31st, 2019, and Interestingly enough, if the rules were followed, I was to have a 6-month notice. And somehow my contract didn't have that clause. And so they thought about it. They said, well, you're changing rules, so we are okay. So they allowed me to come back home. And if I'd done the 6 months, COVID would have found me on the wrong side of things. So I always say those things, sometimes when it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And so even on tough days, I remind myself, remember that journey? Yeah.
Someone asked, I mean, you've mentioned about, you had the conversation with your husband. It seems, because one of the questions that came in is, how do you navigate career growth? How do you balance family and work through your career growth? And I've just heard about how you have these conversations, even before the career. So yeah, what more can you say about that? Because it's really interesting how you already had these conversations before the events took place.
First, let me just say there's no balance. You balance some days, most days it's all over the place. But I think it's in what Peter does, which is to ask, what's the good of the family? Even when we were leaving Zambia, I think I was asked to go to Botswana, and we did and we just said, this is bad for the family, forget about it. And that's how we think about it, this is a family unit which we chose to create. And for me, I used to be like, but what about the children? And he'd say, okay, children will adjust. That was Peter's philosophy. I'm not sure he's right, we will see. But he would say, let's first put the emotional, what about the children over here? Let's do the pros and cons. We'll sort out whatever the children need. So I think having a support system is important. And if you have not picked a husband, pick a supportive one, if possible. I know a lot of husbands are extremely supportive. I think we don't talk about them enough. But there are a lot of them who are extremely supportive. So have a support system. I also brought my nanny from Kenya, and she stayed with me for the full 8 years I was away. I put her into college. She did a course in marketing. She finished. By the time she was back, she had bought land. She had built little rentals. But she was my backbone. My child was born. She was there when my last born was born, and she was with her throughout. She kept things sane when I traveled. Yeah, so having a support system makes a difference. There are things, you'll never get to everything yourself. And if you're those people of, my husband doesn't eat anyone's food, yeah. I'm not saying it's bad, to each person their context, but you'll have to prioritize. If you ask to only eat your food, maybe just don't, yeah.
Support system. Very important.
Yeah.
And by the way, to all the fathers or aspiring fathers, I hope you had the comment she said about how much time your hubby spent with the kids. I think that's something else that is also instrumental in your story.
Absolutely. And I think I can never be a dad enough. But there's also a place where the children need their mom. Yeah, so there are things that they just look at him, they say, he doesn't get this. We need to talk to you about, I am sad. Dad didn't get the I am sad conversation. Yeah, but the spending time with them, people even at the school and essays, it's a bit racial. So some of the parents used to come there, what do you do with this child? We're like, what do we do about what? They want to invite her out. They want to understand, what is it that you do with this child? She has conversations with her dad. He spends time reading with her, reading to her, talking to her, and her level of confidence, how she can engage with grown-ups. And of course, they aren't perfect children, but I think all we can do for our children is give them our very best. And I think there's a place for a dad, there's a place for a mom, and if they're both not there, you've got support systems that can cover for you.
I really admire that, because you're not just on the career side. I mean, you're also intentional about your children and your family.
Yeah, well, it sounds better when you say it than it really is.
All right, Risper. So that's how you came back to Kenya.
Yeah.
EABL. Tell us about EABL.
Well, I think first let me say, very honestly, is one, Kenyans are not friendly, and I didn't know that until I came back. They're not. I mean, I can see Kezi back there. She's one of the few friendly faces that when I came back, Kenyans are not friendly. You know, when I was in Zambia, I tell people every Friday, my house was open house. The team was in my house. The guys would talk to my husband about why women are so strange. The ladies would come, we'd have conversations. And, you know, it's made for just a great community. Hey, yeah, you invite guys to your house. You can't go to the boss's house. Why must we go to the boss's house? Guys are I was very surprised. Guys just aren't that open. So I think that was one of my first big realizations is, yeah, we maybe are not social. And then the second thing is we pride ourselves on hard work. But do we work hard or we work long?
Tafakari hayo.
And it's, and I think I really asked myself, it doesn't mean that every day, you know, you go home at 4. No. There will be seasons that will demand more of you. But if every day is a 9 p.m. day, there's something wrong with your life. Yeah. And we kind of have that culture where we pride ourselves on, I did the longest hours, I come the earliest and I leave the latest. Like, what's up with that? When I first went to Joburg, it's an open plan office, maybe 100 desks. At 6 p.m., I'd look up and the place has emptied out. Guys leave at 5. They go and release their house girls to go and rest at 5 o'clock. They go and do their shopping because the supermarket will close at 6. They go and spend time with their children. And so I had to reset myself. Am I hardworking or what is this I am doing exactly? So I think there's a place for balance. I think we definitely are committed. We definitely are hardworking. But we also have a culture for glorifying long hours. And I think we will ask ourselves when the next generation shows up, that maybe we are missing something. So I think there's room for us to adjust there. But coming back to EABL, EABL was interesting. I'd always sworn I'll never do FMCG, never, ever, ever, and I'll never be an accountant. And here I was. The first thing is I didn't even know the difference between a vodka, a gin, a whiskey. Didn't know. I'd never tasted a beer. Yeah, so here is I've come in, then there's COVID. So I'm working from home. So I don't know the people, I don't know the factories. And all of a sudden, the systems have shut down. And if you're in a business like ours, every day's sales matter because it's cash. And when cash stops flowing, there is trouble. And so that's where I found myself, right in first we kept hoping COVID would end, and then it didn't, and then everything was shut down. But a few amazing things that I loved about EABL. One was, right from the top, was a clear directive that we shall protect jobs. And we shall make sure people are not worried about their health. So if you needed a COVID test, you can get it. And 2, we are going to do all we can to rather redirect focus to people solutioning as opposed to people worrying about whether they have a job or not. And my job was to find the money to fund that. Yeah, so the good thing about that is what it immediately played on what I knew, which was funding and finance and treasury and all of that. So I immediately applied my strengths and learned a lot of things along the way. We went out, raised a huge amount of funding on the capital markets, majorly oversubscribed, after really convincing a very jittery board that this was the right thing to do and knowing that if it fails, it's on my head. But I think what I liked again was that the focus on the people. Redirect their focus to solutioning, keep them energized and not worried about their jobs, and we will come out of this. And so that, for me, was brilliant. It's different because it's an industry I haven't been in. It's more creative, more vibrant, more fast-paced, and it does have its own quirks, as any workplace will, but I think it's been a massively, massively growing experience. And again, as I say, every single day, you're either learning how to be or how not to be. Just take the lessons.
Wow, that's amazing. So let me ask, that's an amazing career. You have grown, you have seen many things, different cultures and all that. As we look at leadership in today's era, what are some of the leadership things, leadership aspects or influences that have changed or need to change, and what are some of those things that don't need to change as far as leadership is concerned?
So one of the things when you brought this topic, I thought about was that I think I was lucky in a sense, because I worked in environments that were far ahead of their time. Yeah, I did see some pockets of weird stuff, but they were almost always ahead of their time. I have sometimes seen very bureaucratic leadership, like you don't even address the person by their name, they have to be called by their title, and things have to follow 10 steps before you get there. One of the biggest tasks I had at EABL was to convince guys that actually CFOs work. Like, they're not just sitting there to sign something. Work with me, like I work, yeah? And break those barriers so we all have the conversation and we all agree and we reduce how much back and forth. But traditional ways of working were very hierarchical, bureaucratic, follow the chain of command and control, very control and security focused, protect, and very task oriented. I think over time, and even in a lot of the environments I've been in, there's been a bigger emphasis on people, on really focusing on the people, caring for them, delivering through them, and making sure that they're there, they want to work for you, so they can take care of your work. So empathy, investing more on EQ as opposed to just IQ. It's not how clever you are, it's how you work with people. A lot more collaboration as opposed to my own thing, my own way. And I think that's a feature pretty much of everything we're seeing now. A bigger emphasis on impact as opposed to just today's deliverables. I think where we're heading, and I have a daughter now in the workplace, Gen Z, is that, you know, she's so much more technologically ahead of me. The things she shows me, I'm like, wow, yeah? We're just all gonna have to be a lot more technologically driven and figure out ways to make life easier. I mean, the thing she showed me the other day, she just showed me on my iPad. There's an AI tool embedded in Apple. You don't ever need to write anything. Just ask it, it does, then you edit. So she's so much quicker at the things she does, and just how inquisitive and curious that generation is, and I think we have to free them to do that, and they can multiply our pace by a lot. I think there's a lot more emphasis on ethics. Ethics is big for me. Being in finance, I think my biggest dilemmas have been of an ethical nature. Right now, the people coming into the workforce, the young people coming in, they're big on ethics. They're big on, are you doing the right thing? And if it don't really resonate with me, then I'm out. And also, I believe our communities are demanding that of us. I think it's going beyond, a friend of mine likes to say, it's invest in AI, but don't forget HI, which is human intelligence here. Like, just being a good person is a thing. So also investing in being a good human being is really important. And finally, adaptability. If you think about where we were in 2020 and now, how much has the world changed? And you have to just roll with the punches. Think about all, even for us last year and now, I mean, a lot of us, our salaries are worth 30% down. You have to figure out how to adapt. If you complain, whine, you know, you have to be very quick to notice change and adapt. Finally, for me, it's a lot more empathy with not just the young people we have, but also ourselves. There's just a lot more of mental health challenges around, and if you're not empathetic, you could actually destroy people working for you. So really having a good understanding, investing behind promoting good mental health in the workplace as well, because a lot of workplaces, to be honest, and they're quite toxic. I mean, they're not good for us. And we as leaders, we have to shift that and say we want deliverables, but we want people who are healthy working for us and with us and giving us results that are actually meaningful impactful, sustainable. So there's a lot more I can say. I told him I did a lot of research on ChatGPT. I have a thesis, but let me leave it there. Yeah.
Risper, tell us about a major setback in your career, either as a result of your own mistake or a decision you made that went south. Talk to us about that.
I thought about this one a lot. I really did. The one I want to talk about was, and usually this is a thing that I know, is when I say 99% of people want to work. They may be just in the wrong seat, or, yeah. But 99% of the time, they want to work, they want to be successful, they want to win. Nobody's born with a desire to lose. So how come then we have these situations at work where people are demotivated, they don't want to be there? A lot of the times it's because we haven't quite unpacked what should they be doing. And sometimes when you unpack what should they be doing, if you're both honest and you then send them to what they should be doing, they'll be just fine. I think for me it was a case, I'm really trying to understand what went wrong here. And it was a case, I had a small team and it was an individual who was doing quite a critical role. Hey, but the messes they were making were unbelievable. But they came highly recommended, top talent. But then, you unpack their work, you say today we are going to move this from here to here. Tomorrow, you ask him, okay, did we move the thing from here to here? No, actually, we decided, let's move this one. So I think I was very, very patient because first I realized there's a problem. If you've always been top talent, you can't just start failing today. So what's going on? So I did an assessment, and when I did the assessment, first I realized their personality was so high risk for the role they were taking. They were going to lose us money, and a lot of money if we're not careful. The second thing was they seemed to be struggling with something, because sometimes they dial in, because we're on remote work, but the sounds from where they're dialing in, it's not work from home, it's work from somewhere else. And then they just stopped working. Like they completely stopped. So everybody else was lifting the weight for them, and it was taking a toll on the team. And I was really trying to understand, because I'm empathetic, I'm really trying to help. So we go into a performance improvement, we're moving A to B this week, let's just move A to B, send me an email confirming we're moving A to B, let's move A to B, we move A to B. We work like that for 3 months, we are doing what we should be doing. I let go, back to square one. So what do I finally do? Say, okay, I have to de-risk this. So let's remove you from high risk rule. Let's put you over here because I still think there's something else you're dealing with that I'm not clear on. So I even arrange wellness. Let's get you some help so we figure out how best to sort this out. Eventually, the person even tells me, oh, by the way, I know I'm not performing, but there's a big party next year that I need to attend, so I'm waiting for that one. Then maybe I'll think about going. Hey, that's when I was like, so first I'm looking at the team. Everybody was having to carry your extra weight. And they're looking at me and they're saying, as the leader, you're going to allow this. And eventually I just had to say, my friend, we've tried. We've tried this, we've tried that, we've tried the other. And in essence, when I look back, this person was a good seed. They didn't invest in their roots. So their roots weren't deep. And when now they were in a situation where they needed to show up, they physically couldn't show up, and they started falling apart. And that should have been called out a long time ago. But because they were a good seed, everybody kept saying, but they're good, but we haven't done anything about their roots. So eventually it had to be a parting, a very sad one. I ended up getting death threats. It was really quite tough. But I always say, by the time you get there, it's hurting the whole team. It's not good for them. It's not good for the company. It's not good for you. So why are we doing it? And people had been doing this for a long time. Yeah. So finally, when the person left after they got over the death threats, they were just fine and they're thriving and they're doing well. So I think for me was sometimes in empathizing, we allow the one person to actually cause damage to the rest of the team. You move quickly, you act on them, but you act with empathy and you act with the right support, but quickly. Yeah.
Wow. And in a few minutes, I'll be inviting questions from the audience. So if you have a question, please be ready to ask. So this, you have touched on it, but it came like several times. How do you manage Gen Z at the workplace?
First, I thought I have Gen Z at home, which is where it all starts. I think for me, people are people, and you just have to figure out what's important to them. And then when you figure out what's important to them, how do you harness their best for the benefit of the organization and for them? And so with my particular Gen Z who's now in the workforce, I've learned that I listen a lot more. Like, I think I went for coaching because of parenting, not even because of anything else. So I listen, and I ask questions, and I say, tell me about it. And what would you like to do? So tell me, what options do we have here? What outcome do we want to have? And I think they surprise you with the potential that they have. And just because they don't see things the way you do, doesn't mean it's not okay. They're far smarter, sharper, quicker. They do need some gentle handling, but I think they're probably who we wish we were if we were not afraid. Yeah.
Wow. Tumesikia? Tafakari hayo. Let's listen, yeah? People are people. There's another one here that I also found interesting, and because of your growth in different spaces, I'm sure the audience would want to hear this. How do you navigate career growth in a political work environment?
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer to that one. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Because all I know is how to be myself. And it doesn't mean I'm naive and therefore I don't recognize undercurrents as they're going on. But the one thing I do is first, I invest in relationship. So all those conversations with, can you talk to the head of this, and can you talk to this other person? Can you let them know your ideas, your thoughts? When the time comes and you need to be spoken for, they will speak for you. But also let your work be unquestionable, because sometimes we say it's politics because we didn't do our work, and now it's politics. Or sometimes it's just you need some growing up. You didn't read the room right, and you need a moment of reflection to go back in there with a different tone, a different method, a different way of communicating. So I think that it's such a loaded question that I don't think I have the full answer. But I think we all just have to keep growing. And as long as they're humans, there will be politics of one form or another. And I also say, in the end, bad politics plays itself out. It doesn't help results, and it eventually explodes. Yeah. Whether you have the strength to see it through is another question. Yeah.
Okay. And there's this other question about strategies you use, and maybe you can give us examples on how you empower and mentor the next generation of female leaders.
Josie is smiling. I wondered, so I think people focus a lot on structure. Sometimes it's just a conversation, and I'm smiling at Josie because we met on a panel like this one 3 years ago, and we just immediately hit it off. We probably didn't meet again for a long time. Yeah, and then when we met again, we had a few very deep conversations. And I like to think that I mentored her, but she also mentored me. And I enjoyed her company immensely. And it's all about just making myself available, being in spaces where I can be of service. And you never know in the moment when somebody needs you. Mentorship is not 10 sessions. It might just be that one conversation that then shifts your perspective, shifts your situation, shifts your location. Yeah. So Josie is one person that we've connected on that level, and yeah, we'll soon be doing amazing things together. Yeah. Jem is another one. I've known Jem since she was a little girl at KPMG. She worked for me, and there's many like her. And again, for me, it's grab that 1 hour. It doesn't have to be 10 hours of somebody's time, and in that 1 hour, you give and they give back. I always feel like it's never me just giving, because you it has to be mutual. And again, as Anne says, just have content. Yeah, don't come and just my hi. Really just yeah, come with something. Yeah. Yeah. So I think people ask, and again for me it's ask. The one conversation can help. If it doesn't, somebody else will and it might not help you in the moment, but it might help you later. Yeah.
So avail yourself. Yeah, just be available, and you also learn as you mentor.
Yeah.
Let me take a question from the audience. If you have a question, please, and I wonder if we have a roaming microphone, do we? Or we just use this one, eh? All right. So do we have a question in the audience? Oh, we have a question there. So I'm going to walk up to you, and Risper, can you take a couple at a time, or do you want to answer
sure.
one by one?
I have very poor short-term memory, so please no long questions. I'll try to take two.
All right, so two at a go. All right, so let me come to you. Where was it? Oh, here we go.
Thanks, Risper. It's always really nice listening to you, and every time, actually, I learn something new about you, but also about leadership. So one of the things I remember about you working at KPMG is that she was the kind of leader who so one of the when I joined the firm, I was a lawyer. I trained as a lawyer, and I didn't have an accounting background, but she sent me on my very first engagement to Ethiopia, first time of going out of the country on my own, and I was sent to an audit client on my own, and that just speaks to how she trusts people, empowers, and gives people an opportunity. But I really would love to hear from you, Risper, how you're able to do that, to trust people, to give them that opportunity to grow, while keeping certain guardrails. Because even when you sent us out alone on our own, we always knew that if something went wrong, you'd be there to basically catch us. So, so I want to know what goes on in your mind when you do that, and how you're able to do that, so we can also learn and grow people that work with us.
I go ahead. I think there's something very empowering about being trusted, because it puts the duty on you not to let down, to do your best. Am I expecting perfection from you? No, right? But I can see there's the building blocks. Let's see what you can do. Yeah, so for me, it's just about extend trust and support, knowing that if we crashed, and I learned that from Anise, who was my boss as well. She was tough, but when things were wrong, you can be sure she'll have your back. How comforting is that? That you know for sure, if we have to go apologize to a client, she'll be the first one. And by the way, she will never tell you off. She'll say, Risper, did we do something wrong? And I say, yeah, maybe we didn't do this on time, we should have. I say, okay, now let's go talk to the client, tell them we're sorry, and come up with a plan. That was never the time to tell you off. She'll tell you off when you've done a bad report, but when things are serious, she takes leadership and she leads, and she covers her people. And I think for me, that was one example that I always took, is extend trust, and if things go bad, take charge, take accountability. Don't blame your guys, don't throw them under the bus. Work with them, walk with them, and they will surprise you. Over the years, I've found that when I trust guys, they actually surprise me by doing it even better than I could have imagined. And I find that increasingly and consistently. The first 2-3 times, we'll be shaping and correcting together. The third time, they'll be like, we know your story. Watch how we show you what we can do. Yeah, and I love that. I love when they even perfect it to levels I couldn't even have foreseen. And that's your role as a leader, to have people who are better than you and bring that out of them.
It's always a risk, though. And I just want to hear from you. At what point, because it's almost as though you're experimenting. You don't know how it's going to go. So at what point, is it at round 1, round 2, round 3? Of course, we want to allow them to make mistakes, right? But is it at the 5th mistake that you're saying, okay, now this has gone too far? As in how do you navigate that?
So first I say, I still go by the KPMG rule. Hire right, because that's where we get it wrong. Honestly, hire right. And I make sure, even when my guys are hiring, I'm like, guys, I trust you on this one, but let me see them. Allow me to talk to them. I'll be able to feel whether we can test this one out. Because if you get that wrong, you're done. Like you have death threats trying to sort it out. So I think first hire right. Then when you hire right, just as much as it could go wrong, it could also go right. But know that I will take accountability. Now, if I'm taking accountability every day, then we need a reset. Then we need to reconsider the trust, whether it is worthwhile or whether we need baby steps. But half the time I find that when you extend the trust, people extend themselves. They rise to the level of your trust. They don't fall. If your trust is here, they'll fall to that level. If it's here, they'll be trying to jump towards it. Can you get it wrong? Yes. But can you get it right? Of course. So it's a balance, but hire right. Yeah.
Starting from the hiring. Any other question from the audience? We have, let me start from back there, then I'll come this way. So this time they'll ask two, eh?
Okay.
It's there and here.
Okay.
Thank you. Risper, always such fun listening to you, and I always learn something new. As much as I've known you for a long time, there's always something new to pick. So my question to you is, how has your background and education shaped the person you are today? And I ask this question because the Kenyans we always think you must have gone to the right schools, you must have been brought up in a certain environment and all that. So how has your upbringing and education shaped that? And then my second question to you is, so what next? You're CFO of EABL. What else is there to aspire to?
All right, let's take one more up at the front here, and then you can answer.
Okay.
Hi, Risper. Hi. So my question would be, so I'm looking at empathy, because now we're in the era where we're thinking about people, and people first. But again, there's also the push for results. So then, how do you handle underperformance, still in empathy, and thinking about, say, the whole team? Because I realized, like you're mentioning about the good seed that just didn't figure out the roots. So then in this time where there's a push for numbers, yes? And then I'm still supposed to be empathetic. And then, of course, there's the manipulation bit where people know there's the empathy part and there's the management and leadership looking at people. So then they use that to manipulate you. So then how do you handle that?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So thanks, Kezi. Kezi is one of my very, very best friends. And thank you for being here. Hey, background, that's a long one. What I will say are 2 or 3 things. One, that I spent my first 6 years or so in the village, not going to school, not speaking a word of English. And so my first English started in class 6, at the age of 6. And I kind of spent my life trying to make up for it. But also a lot of investment from my dad. My mom was an English teacher. Very simple, very normal people. I went to primary school at Ohaga Primary School, started at currency, not knowing English, figured it out. I think for me, it's always the thing of overcoming. There's nothing I can't teach myself, yeah? And it's just saying that, if I apply myself enough, I will learn how to do it right, except having a baby. That's, you can't, master that one. So I did that. I went then to Ohaga Primary. My dad worked in a bank as an accountant eventually. My mom was a lecturer, retired at 70 years just the other day. Really very middle class family, lower middle class, not upper. Went to Precious Blood, Riruta, Strathmore, and then UN. So quite normal. But I think that regardless of our background, we can improve ourselves. Yeah, we can. improve ourselves. You can't always be saying, you know, I went to X school. At some point, it's irrelevant. Like, it's how are you improving yourself now? If your job requires you to speak, can you learn how to speak well? If it requires you to present, can you learn how to do presentations? Everything is learnable, teachable. So it's not about where you came from. It's the possibilities are with you, and you can teach yourself pretty much anything you set your mind to. I also read a lot. I'm a huge reader. My mom is a huge reader, and I picked that from her. I think it's so important to read, because that's one of the ways you improve yourself. Your tough questions, what next? Who knows? Yeah, I think I do my best, and I trust that God will open the right doors. Yeah. Yeah. On empathy and results. I think the first thing you have to accept as a leader is that you can't deliver the results yourself. So you have to deliver them through your people. And how do your people deliver for you? That's your job to unlock. So first, are they the right people? If they're the right people, your work is to energize them into results, and even better results. Half the time, they'll be better than you. If they're not, you chose wrong. Yeah? And so that's my thing is, your work is to unlock their potential to deliver for you. Otherwise, don't hire them, do everything yourself. Yeah? And that's the only way you'll deliver the numbers, is through people. Unless, you know, yeah. So for me, that's the thing. You have to keep the team focused on the goal and energize them towards the goal. They've got to want it. Yeah. So for me, it's consistently saying, this is why this is important. This is why we are important. I think the other day what happened, we normally have a quarterly business review, which is a big deal. It's with the president of the region, and, you know, we come to present our results. And, you know, we've got a planning timeline, which makes sure that once we do it on time, then we'll show up well. What tends to happen is sometimes my team will slack, and then things are last minute, and then they're rushed, and then we're not ready. So this time we were ready, but again, they lost the rhythm. And when they lost the rhythm, I felt that we could have shown up better. But what's my conversation? Is it you guys messed up? No. I mean, we showed up well in the end. But my feedback to the guys is, this is our biggest show in the quarter. How do we want to show up? So let's think about it. What worked this time? What did we do well? And what do we know very well that we could have done that would have sharpened our game? It's so different from, you guys messed up. Yeah? Yeah. So I think it's also just knowing that you're very powerful as a leader. Your words are powerful. Your tone is powerful. Your body language is powerful. They watch you. So even if I come and say, this is our biggest gig, but I don't believe it, they read it. Yeah? But it's just asking myself, before I have this conversation, where do I want to pitch it? I want them to know that they're doing the most important job of the quarter. So precision is important. Quality is important. Every cog counts, and when we deliver well, these are the outcomes. This is how we show up as a team. So I think sometimes it's just in how you craft that for inspiration, as opposed to crushing the spirit and everybody feeling bad about it. And I know even me sometimes, of course, you'll have gone in and then I'll be like, anyway, guys, there was harsh. Let's retake that. Yeah? But I think it's just looking for that in how do you, I did a course with Sunny Bindra, which was how do you infect your people with inspiration? That's your role as a leader. How do you infect them with passion to do this thing, whatever it is you're doing? So if you're not infecting them, and sometimes you have to infect yourself first before you go back to infect them. Yeah. So it's perspective, it's reframing. They've got to want it. Yeah. And it's in how you sell it to them. It's how you communicate it. Manipulation, I think you will know. And again, I'm back to it. It's like a 1%. Yeah, it's like a 1%. The rest are really just trying to do a great job. Yeah. Maybe you've just put them in the wrong place. So fix that and yeah.
So Risper has just given us a clue. Yes, I'm coming. Risper has given us a clue into, no, not a clue, a hint. There's a tool. You remember team talking about we are practical. So there's a tool that we're going to give you by the end of today's session that will actually help you in terms of, remember what Risper has said, how do you show up? How do you learn? How do you reframe, all right, your leadership perspective, all right? So that's something to look out for. Question, let's come to you, sir, and then I'll come this way.
Thank you, Risper, for the inspiration. My name's Nagasha Godfrey, and you've talked a lot about showing up, going for those opportunities. We understand opportunities are everywhere, but at times it's very difficult to spot one. So when do you think is the right time to strike? Do you wait until you have something to offer, or you just ask and then you figure it out later?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, you've got that, Risper?
Thank you for the opportunity. Hello, Risper.
Hi.
My name is Irene Dingori. Borrowing on what you've just addressed, listening to your journey, you've been big on the team and building the team and motivating the team. So my question to you is, what are the strategies that you can use to motivate a team when you have poor leadership and management and there's low morale? Thank you.
Well, take them slowly. Okay, go.
Okay.
Yeah. You might have to repeat them for me. Yeah.
I-
No, just go.
Go ahead. Okay. Hi, Rispa. I'm really happy to be here today. And I just speak from what you said earlier about people and being exceptional in and being committed to relationships as well, and having people that you admire, that inspire you, and you want to follow. And you're that person that I admire. I mean, I look up to you and I want to follow you. So the question I have for you is, you have appeared as high-flying, best CFO. I mean, you're a woman leader, a great woman leader in Africa. So how do you balance with family? You talked about having a supportive husband who moved to South Africa with you. Was he working? Was he looking after the family? And in today's world where the woman is really empowered, how do you then remove your CFO hat when you get home and be a wife, be a homemaker, be a mother? How do you strike that balance?
Okay. So the first one was on opportunities. As you asked it, I was thinking about it. And the way I think about it is, one, in terms of my readiness to move. Because opportunities can come and you can chase after them, and then before you know it, you're not even doing your job because you're chasing opportunities. So for me, first is in knowing where I am. I normally get a restlessness in my spirit when it's time to move. I don't know how to explain it. There's just that thing that tells me it's time. And then when it's time, somehow the doors start to open, or things start to appear that speak to what I want. Now, do I get all of them? Do I go after all of them? You have to sit and do that assessment of what. One question I ask myself is, what next after this one? So if I go for this one, where does it take me next? So it's not about that job, it's about the job after it. Yeah, so assuming I am ready, whatever I'm considering, where does it take me? And if it's not taking me where I need to, then let me just sit tight. Of course, there are times when you're in a situation where you need to move. Sometimes that happens. Then you evaluate and you know very clearly you're moving to move. Therefore, you might move again. But I always say, just be patient, invest in yourself. And a lot of the times you will be phoned. I never filled an application for EABL. They asked somebody for names and they were told, talk to this person. And then they phoned me, and then we had conversations, and it just progressed. So I think first, just make sure you're exceptional at what you do. You're the best at the thing that you're being asked to do. And then when you're ready to move, be clear on where it's taking you. And then put up your hand, have conversations. And finally, build relationships before you need them. Yeah, if the day now you see the job is when you're calling Risper, there's a job in your place. You've known me all this time. Why haven't you been building that relationship? Yeah, so be targeted about building those relationships long before you need them. The lady in blue, what was the question? Okay, so first I want to say, well, people who need to be motivated are problematic. You kind of have to self-motivate. And then my job as your boss is not to demotivate you. Yeah, and it's to remove.
She's provided context, eh?
Yes.
When the leadership is not supportive.
So who is the leadership? Are you the leadership that's not supportive?
Case in point, maybe you're in mid-level management, then the top-level management is poor. So how do you keep your team motivated? Strategies that you can use.
So first you are a leader at any level, right? When I first went to SA, one of the things that happened was I had this lady boss that, in hindsight, I realized she was under siege. She was taking blows from everywhere. So she was difficult. And then she was Afrikaans. And if you know Afrikaans, their language is very rough. So when they talk to you, they send you an email, you think it's an invitation to quit, right? And so there's a lot of demotivation. I think it was an open plan office, and one day she slapped her PA. I mean, there was just drama. And then I came in, and I'm from Barclays, and she thinks Barclays has sent you to spy on me, so I am not welcome. And I think for me, my focus first was on my team. Insulate them from the negative energy. They shouldn't feel it. Create a space that other people start to think, what's happening over there? So you, within the place that you can influence, create that energy of us, where we are here, we are going to be the best, and that's what we are going to do. And so you just make sure that you keep them focused, you have a clear vision, you align them to it, you support, and you're consistently inviting them to a bigger goal. She's on one day called me and asked me, what's going on? Like, deliverables are great, people are happy, what's happening over there? And eventually, I got to know her and realize the battle she was fighting. And I realized people are just people. This person is going through stuff that even I couldn't begin to comprehend. And so when I was in a position to then understand and support her and extend my impact, then I did that. Because sometimes when you know better, you can do better. Yeah, so I think it's easy to assume that our bosses are bad. Sometimes they are bad, but sometimes we just have no clue what they're having to deal with. And so first insulate your team, and then I've found in building relationship, when you get to know them, then you get to be able to support them better. But do what you can, where you can, with what you have. You can always have an impact. Okay.
Right,
And Wakeshi's question was balance. There's no balance. There really isn't. I think you're one person who has a number of things going on. You get support, you do your best. Yeah. When we went, my hubby didn't work initially, but my hubby is very financially savvy. Like, my hubby can go to an auction and bet 10,000 for a car and get it. Like, if he's lucky, and then he's financially savvy and very responsible. So he has ways and means of doing things, and it's not a kadil imeiva, no. He's a very prudent person, and I really respect that. And so he has, whatever businesses he runs, he is a really smart generator of returns, and I admire that about him. So he did do that when we were away. He does a bit of real estate. He's now going into farming. But I think for me, the biggest thing was that in your family, you have to prioritize the family. Money is an enabler. If you forget the role of money and it being an enabler, then that's where the problems start. I don't think it's ever the titles. It's always that we just forget the role of money. Yeah. Yeah, so I think for me, it's just, one, are you aligned in that your home? Two, Are you prioritizing the right things? 3, and context is everything. Is everything. Because I can advise you about how to be married to my husband, but you're not married to him. So yeah, so know your person. But I think it's also just putting things in the right place, prioritizing relationship over things, and prioritizing your family over yourselves. Because even when we're looking at something career-wise, it's never about Risper or Peter or whose ego. It's how does this look for the family? If you depersonalize it, then you see a promotion is good for the family. If you think about it, it's for what about my ego, then that's where we lose it. Yeah.
All right, so we have time for a few more questions. I'll take these 3. 1, 2, 3. And if I don't take your question, this is what we're going to do, all right? So Risper is not going to dash out of here after this, all right? So please find Risper after this, and then you can have that conversation. Just for the sake of, managing the corporate time, we're going to take 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Risper, very nice listening to you. Turns out the year was 2008, and you were at my manager's interview in KPMG. I ended up working for them. Anyway, you said really profound stuff. We lead people, not work. Hiring the right talent is then therefore essential. My question to you is, what are the two, 3 things, bullet points, you look out for? You said you like to speak to people to feel them. Because I've met people, they speak well, they posture well, they're highly recommended. The skill set looks superb. They've worked for all the places people should work for. They look like it, they talk like it. So when in feeling them, what are you looking for, and how do you measure that which you look for?
Please remind me your name.
Alex.
Okay.
Go
Shall I
ahead.
take it?
Yeah.
It's a tough one. First, the one thing I dislike in life is managing upwards, being managed. Don't do that thing. Talking big. I did a thesis in, I don't know what. Just don't do those things. So for me, I look for one, potential. Can I see you sitting in my seat? Or at least one down? And that comes from, I don't know how to explain that, but can I see you making the strides to be in my seat someday? And I assess that in 1, your skills, 2, your clarity of mind in terms of the things you're going after, 3, your attitude in resolving and unblocking things rather than complaining. So I'll be sussing you through our conversation to see where your potential is, because I think in a team, you always have stars. You always have really safe pair of hands, and there's a lot of that as well. But I think if you get somebody who then gets stuck, it's so frustrating for them, and it's frustrating for you. So I want to make sure that I can see your potential to be in my seat. I want to see your attitude, yeah? Are you a solver, a complainer? Do you get things done? And then I assess, very importantly, and this I've learned even more in EABL, I look for culture fit. There are cultures where I found like EABL is a very relational culture. So you've got to influence. If you want something done, you've got to talk to people. If you don't talk to people, you'll struggle. And I've hired very good people who will go far, but they struggle to fit into the culture. So now I learn to see, knowing all my stakeholders across the group, can this person navigate it, or will it frustrate them? Because remember, it has to be good for them and for the organization. Because if it's not going to work. So you might be good, but I don't give you the job, not because of you, but because I can tell this will frustrate you, and it will rather destroy you instead of building you. So it's a hard thing, and I think it really comes with experience. I remember even in SA, my boss said, me, I've gotten hires wrong, but you, 90% of the time, you're spot on. Like, how? I invest the time. I sell the vision. I want to see that they buy into the vision. Can they drive it? Can they deliver it? So I spend a lot of time in conversation about your drive, your passion, your ethics, I look for all of that. Of course, you have to be a bit clever, so your foundational stuff needs to be right. So you need to be smart. It helps. Yeah, but and then there are people I just get because I can see I can shape this one. They've got something in there. So it's never the sharpest dockers. No, if you come and see my team, you'll see it's quite a mix, but they shine. Like there's something in there that, as a leader, I can see will grow and emerge and into something else. And I also think about it long term. Your career is beyond one organization. So when I'm hiring you, you may give me 2 good years, but they're 2 good years, and that's okay. You may give me 5 good years, and that's okay. Or you may stay and take on my role, and that's also okay. So it's a hard one to put into a box. It comes down to the gut, honestly. Yeah.
All right.
So thank you very much, Risper. Very inspiring. I've learned a lot. One question. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you address it?
So we can take this too.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Anne. I think my question is, how did you cope with ageism and misogyny, especially being a young lady in leadership, mostly when you're in Barclays?
Well, those are strong words. Okay, just remind me the question.
For
The first one.
she asked about imposter syndrome. If you've
Oh,
experienced
yeah.
that.
Ish, guys. The one thing that I don't like talking about is imposter syndrome. Why? Because everybody has some level of uncertainty, especially if you're doing something new, something high stakes, something with a lot of exposure. Of course, you'll have days when you're like, man, am I doing the right thing? Yeah? Do I really know what I'm doing? Imagine it's a thing that happens to everyone every day. Even when you have a new child, do you say, I have imposter syndrome because I have never had a baby and I don't know, am I a good mother? You know what? So I think we overanalyze it. We give it even a name of a disease. Man, let's stop doing that. It's okay to have some uncertainty. Work on it, encourage yourself, show up your best, bring your best. Even nobody even in that boardroom knows everything. They all have some doubt or some uncertainty. So just go in there and bring your best and don't think about syndromes. There's nothing like that, at least as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Misogyny and what? And ageism, and let me even add racism. I think those, I don't know. Because when I joined Barclays as a director, I was 32. I didn't even realize I was young. I mean, in my head, I was grown up and mature, and yeah, it didn't occur to me that maybe you are a young person, you are the youngest in this role, and all of that. So I think first I'm never aware of it, that now I am young, and therefore people might look down on me. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm here. I have my skills, my experience, my knowledge. Can we get to work? Yeah. And that's how I come at every opportunity. When it comes to gender as well, I don't remember being afraid to speak in a forum because there were men. I don't remember allowing anybody to put me down. I speak my piece, and one of the biggest things was when I went to SA, I think I walked into this meeting and I had a lot of opinions and I gave them freely. And later, after the meeting, everyone came to ask, who are you again? Because they were not used to black people speaking up. Did I even know I'm black at that point? I was just there to do a job. I think it's just show up, you know your stuff, you're in that role because you're the best for it. And yeah, I just show up. So either I've been lucky or not, I don't know. I did have one where there was clear racism and I faced it head on. When I took on the SA role, there was a bunch of white managers, and I then hired 2 directors above them who were both female. One was white Portuguese, one because they're different whites. So white Portuguese, and then there was one who was African, black. And so the head of the business unit was quite senior. He even headed the business at some point. Came and he was having a strategy workshop. So he skips me, he skips the 2 ladies, he goes to the first white guy and invites him for the strategy workshop. So I go to his office and I tell him, I came, I introduced you to the team, I showed you my structure. So what's up with this? I mean, he just turned red and he said, I think the list was outdated, it was a mistake, but he never repeated it again. So some things I just call out and say, what are you doing? Like, what's this now? Yeah. And I'm not going to be confrontational, neither did I call you racist. I just said, you know who's supposed to be in this conversation? Why is this happening? Yeah. So I think there's wisdom, there's EQ to it, but there's also not being taken for granted, and also not being so hung up on it. Not everybody is after you. You just go there and show your stuff, because you're good at what you do. You should be confident. You should deliver it. You shouldn't let anybody look down on you or silence you. Yeah, and just bring your best, because that's what we're there for. Yeah.
Amazing. So, Risper, as we bring this conversation to a close, I know you're passionate about leadership. So what would be your parting shot tonight?
I think my parting shot is that everything rises and falls on leadership. And leadership is not the CEO. It's each and every one of us. And leadership is important because each and every person under you is a father, a mother, a sister, a husband, a wife, and whatever impact you have on them as a leader travels. So when they come to the workplace and it's toxic, it's hateful, it is negative, imagine how their children experience it, their family experiences it. They experience a very troubled person. And so it's so important that we raise the level of leadership to be what it should be. And that is to grow people, to empower them, and to challenge them. And that's not to be nice. Don't mix the two up. Being nice is, I just pat you even when it's not working. Sometimes leadership means that I see you off to your next assignment because this is the wrong one. And if I keep you here, it is bad for you, you're miserable. It's bad for the organization, they're miserable. It's a no-win. But we're afraid to have those conversations. But the ripple effect of bad leadership is huge. And the ripple effect of good leadership is huge. So we can make a difference because of how we lead. We can raise different generations of Kenyans, different workplaces, and have a really big impact. So your role matters as a leader at every level. You have an impact. Let it be a good one.
Ladies and gentlemen, Risper Genga, let's appreciate her.